This podcast is proudly supported by the Otara Network Action Committee, ONAC, community-owned, community-driven and community-led.
Kia ora mai tātou. Onki mai anō ki We Are Ōtara. Today I am with the amazing Joseph Liava'a, a guy that I've known for must be nearly a decade now. Is it?
I think so.
I was trying to think about that last night.
Yeah.
So really excited to have him up here in the podcast studio with me and Vinny. Welcome, Joseph.
It's great to be here.
Thank you so much.
No, thanks for the invitation. I've been watching the podcasts online and thinking, when's Judy going to ask me?
Oh.
I'm joking.
I think you've been on the list for about 6 months, actually, and it was when I saw you at the network meeting the other day. I went, yes! Grab that man now.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations on how well it's been going so far.
You're talking about the podcast? Yeah. Not the ONAC meeting. We love it. We really love it. And, what was that number that Vinny just gave us before?
150?
Yeah. I can't believe that. It'd be interesting to look at the stats.
Well, time flies when you're having fun, I think.
It is. Well, this is such a humble place where we're, the whole purpose of this podcast channel was to capture our stories here. I think the frustration that we had, and I've had, I guess, all my life because I'm a bit like that, was that no one's telling the real story. The only stories you hear about Otara and South Auckland are, another drug bust, another gang, another, whatever the kids do with the cars.
For every one of those, there's 99 other, not just success stories, but just fantastic things happening. I really like how the studio's in accelerating Aotearoa as well. This building has a lot of history and,
it does.
And mana, I think.
Do you remember it from... No.
Yeah.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, Sally was here this morning. So tell me about this is a lovely place to start our conversation. Tell me about your memories of this building.
I just remember, I think it was the homework clubs or the computer clubs, it looks the same downstairs, but it's a lot busier now. There's heaps more computers, and it's just a really warm atmosphere. I think Esther and the other volunteers they I think they give the place a vibe. I think
they do, don't they?
Yeah.
It's incredible. Very humbling, really, just to see the whole momentum building. But it's heart on heart, I think. And we never want to get cocky about the whole thing.
You're amazing.
We're very, very lucky that we've just attracted some of the right people, really, and everyone brings their open heart and their love for people, and that's the way we can build a community, build it back.
That's the Otara way, it seems.
It is the Otara way. So I want to go back to when I first met you. We were at Mangere in the library, talking about how we employ people, and there were two things I remember about that first ever meeting was, we were running that CV preparation for work program.
I thought.
Yeah, I loved it. But it was really intensive, and we couldn't get anyone to fund it. And even when we got government agencies to fund it, they didn't understand that, this is a multi-year process, working alongside whānau and working alongside individuals.
Also, whānau that hadn't had most of them hadn't had jobs for a long time, so you're working. It's probably the hardest people to move into employment. But after every meeting, everyone was really buzzing. That's why I loved coming. It was really cool.
I loved it too. But what I loved is that you look those young people in the eye and say, if you really want a job, come and see me at where you are working. We talk about that. It doesn't matter. Yes, East Tamaki Healthcare.
No.
Come over and I'll make sure you get an interview. And that was like hope. So we often say that Accelerating Aotearoa is the business of hope. I think I just loved that you said that. And the other thing, which I cited back to the brand new chief executive up the road, and I didn't say it was you, but I remember you said if you really, really can't afford to go to the doctor, you can always come to us and we'll see you. And I asked him the other day if that was true, and he said yes.
That's great to hear.
It is great.
And East Tamaki Healthcare, they're now local doctors.
Yeah.
They, I actually owe so much to them. The Patels who used to own it and built it up from, I think, a single doctor, single nurse on the corner of East Tamaki Road and Preston Road. To now it's, I think, a 50 clinic network.
50 in Auckland, I think.
Yeah, 50.
That was what Alex was telling me the other day, one of their people,
Yeah, and one of the earliest, it sounds like I still work for them, and I'll stop soon, but, they were the earliest to offer $10 visits they were doing it in the 90s and right up until, not too long ago, I think. But, they hired me, I wasn't a doctor or a nurse, but they
were a lawyer.
Me, and they let me just go out into the community and, sort of help out where I could. I owe them a lot.
Well, I saw that you were this breath of hope for so many young people that came through that, through that program that we were running that just, offered them opportunities. And I loved the fact that was, because at that point, there was already the clinic up there on the corner of Hayman and Beds. That was the main clinic, wasn't it, then, before the asbestos. But that, I can't think what I was going to say now. So it was the whole point about, I know that super editor there.
That was just, I loved that, just the community, real grassroots, and and I could tell you, I didn't realise you were doing it all for free, and it was your time, your efforts. There was always food, which I always liked coming in. It was around lunchtime,
especially in the library, having food in the library in those days. Whoa!
But and also, props to the library for supporting something like that and realising, hey, some people
were special,
hadn't eaten that day, so it's. I love libraries. I could. I grew up in the libraries.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, that was amazing. And I think, while we're thinking about how special it was, actually, it was the incredible Sonia, who was the manager
Sonia
there.
Sonia Munro?
Yes, Sonia. She's
amazing.
She is amazing.
Yeah.
Just incredible. And she was the real change agent for that library. And I see our program, they're trying to replicate that back at MSD, and I don't think it can be quite the same when it's all in community. The reality. So how did you get to, before you worked at East Tamaki Healthcare, now the doctors, where were you before that?
Okay, before that...
Questions I never asked.
I used to... my first job out of uni, I took the sort of the garden road to finishing my degrees, and so
all the best people do that,
Oh, that's on here. I don't know if it's true, but I was in my mid-30s when I finally.
That's quite a garden.
I smelled all the roses, but I was in my mid-30s, and my first sort of job, professional job, out of the blocks was working for the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. It's no longer there anymore, but it was based in Wellington, and my role was to fight for consumer rights, and so we're pretty out there in terms of fighting for consumer rights. MB used to be called MED, Ministry for Economic Development, and we were sort of a subset of them. But we were. I liked. We were pretty sort of, what would you call it, radical or liberal,
autonomous.
We worked for the ministry, but when people had problems, we gave them legal advice on how to sort of. Normally, it was Consumer Guarantees Act sort of cases. People, buying something, cars, buying services that, and they had problems with them. That was my first job out of uni, and it sort of. Part of that role was going out and training the budget advisory services and the community law centres right around the motu. And so we had a team of about 8, and we'd go out and do the training. But I really loved that. I really enjoyed that sort of
like you said, grassroots, working
real
in community,
grassroots.
which is the real opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, and the CABs, they and the budget advisory services, they run on the oil of a smelly rag. So, but going out, travelling New Zealand, and getting to sort of teach people about their consumer rights was really sort of I guess. Sort of woke up a passion in me for consumer issues. Well, it was my first job, so I mean that didn't have too much to sort of colour it any other way. So I did that for about a year and a half before I became the private secretary for the minister. So I would, I was like the bridge between the minister's office and the ministry. So not part of the political sort of process, but definitely, our job was to keep the minister sort of abreast of everything.
And answer those questions he's going to get asked on Wednesday morning.
Things like that. But, when I was doing that, sitting in Bowen House, which is where the minister's office was, I felt really disconnected, and I thought, this is really fun, having, high level meetings and going in the minister's limo. But it wasn't, I thought if I'm going to do this for a long time, I wouldn't enjoy it. And so I told my friend, actually, his family used to own East Tamaki Healthcare. I just told him what I was thinking, and he said, "Hey, come and work for me in South Auckland, and you can be our community liaison manager." It was just a role he made up on the spot. So I'm forever grateful to Rakesh Patel for doing that. And so when I got out to Otara for about 2 weeks, I was just sitting at the desk, sort of clutching the desk like this. I didn't know what to do. I was like,
what do community advisors?
Yeah, because it wasn't made up. The job was really to sort of promote the clinics and connect the clinics with the community. I didn't have a clue.
Which you did so, but you
what
did
I was
it so
doing.
naturally.
But it was actually Tippy Arthur who actually sort of helped me break through the ice, as it were. He was sitting on a plane next to Rakesh, and they just started talking, and he said, "Oh, why don't you send Joseph to the network meeting we have?" And so the network meeting, the ONAC network meeting, was my first real sort of community anything. And actually the network meeting. So what year was that? 2010.
That's amazing.
2010. And the network meetings actually became the source of most of my community engagement stuff. That's around.
And now it's great to see it back like that now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it really feels like that to me. I love those networks. But I love the fact it was Tippy, because I'm part of Tippy's army,
I'm forever grateful to Tippy. A good man. He used to be in the police, and actually he was in the police when my dad was in the police. So we had something in common there. But I love Tippy.
Yeah. Well, I've fought on his team. He led us in a community protest a couple of years ago. That was when I first got to know him. I'd die in a ditch with him.
He, in a world of grey, things are pretty black and white for him.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's incredible, He takes the, he asks the hard questions and then takes a stand. I look up to him.
Yeah, well, we're going through a process where he's doing exactly that right now. So, it's a great honour to work with a man like that, and to think that foresight, is decades long.
Yeah. He's an amazing man.
Yeah. Otara's very lucky that he's on Team O. Really lucky. Wow. So that kind of creates a sort of full circle piece, doesn't it? So time so you were there for this great, I remember first meeting the Patels when I was serving in a board that had sponsored an award that they got.
Oh.
And it was Ulu's company, Kojita. So they won must have been about 2010.
Oh, wow.
They'd won a Best Enterprise Award or something like that. It was incredible. Just and thinking, how can something this remarkable be operating?
Well, it's it's like we before the cameras were on, we were talking about how Otara just produces hit after hit after hit, and that company, as a commissioner at the Commerce Commission, I shouldn't really sort of be going on and on about the company, but it's just my old place of employment. Their focus on serving the community and whether they could pay or not is how they built their systems, and their their values were always aligned with the community. So
it's fundamental equity, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what I love. And when you meet the new chief executive, I'm sure you will at some point, he's a very remarkable young man and holds that same fire and passion.
Awesome.
It is.
Well, it's great to see, the company's in good hands.
Yeah, just exciting. But it's more than just good hands. And that goes back to your point that you're saying that Otara is creating this legacy of remarkable people.
So many world, beaters are coming out of Otara. It's hard to keep count.
Yeah, so many people think it's just about Pori Furumana, and maybe he was our first superstar.
There's so many, that's just music, but they go across everything. Business, sport, education, politics. Yeah, I think, it's that, when you grow up in an area and you have to struggle, you build up resilience and, ways, and you build up sort of, ways through the hardship, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's the gift that we want to give every child in this town, every young person, that there is an opportunity, and that's the gift of this podcast, of course. Great things come from Otara. Just have a watch, meet some people, find out about what they really think. That's why you're here, so that you can share that whakaaro. But it was more than that. It's the heart element of it too.
Yeah.
And there are people
because I was, sort of raised in Māngere, we always used to look at Otara and think, our arch nemesis.
274 versus 275.
Yeah, and, but until, I started working here and, my mum lives up the road, I realised, how special Otara is as well. But yeah, I remember... The first network meetings, I'd sort of, you'd get up and during the whakawhanaungatanga and sort of, I'd get up and I'd say, my name, and I grew up in Māngere, and it'd just be dead silent, crickets. And then, I thought, what the hell's going on here?
Work out where the nearest exit is.
I know. And then it wasn't until I talked to my sister, who, her name's Kirsten Taranaki, she teaches at Hillary College. I told her, I said, what's up? And she said, Otara doesn't give a stuff about Māngere, so you better stop. Going on about Māngere. Oh, yeah.
Might be neighbours, but we're not cousins.
The families are sort of, they cross the sort of the boundaries, and Otara's tough, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, I won't ask what possessed you to leave East Tamaki Healthcare or the doctors, but I guess it comes a time in everybody's career where you have to leave what you love and go and take the next step.
Yeah, and you do all you can, you think you can do, and you look for a new challenge, and that new challenge was the Commerce Commission. But in between the Commerce Commission, or leaving East Tamaki Healthcare and the Commerce Commission, I had been the chair of Otara Health Charitable Trust, and then when the CEO, John Coffey, was leaving, the board asked me to step in briefly as the interim CEO.
When everyone had their fingers crossed that you would be the new CEO.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I'm speaking on behalf of those who I spoke with.
I quickly discovered I'm not the CEO type. Like, that's too much work. I hadn't had any experience sort of managing teams, and So I think governance is where my sort of skills lie, not so much management. It's the worst CEO on record, I think. But yeah, I loved working there and the work and the team that we worked with. Passionate about Otara. And also, the wider South Auckland. But yeah, and then sort of the role at the Commerce Commission. It was quite a surprise getting that role because, everyone, when they're looking for work, they send out CVs and you're never sure if you're going to hear back. And somehow I snuck through the application process and get an interview.
Rakesh was there looking out for you again.
Yeah, possibly. So I was actually really surprised because normally, and I found that out when I got there, the commissioners are either commercial lawyers with a lot of experience or economists who also have a lot of experience. But, in the commission sort of, in their favour, they were looking for a community perspective and community voice, which is, which thankfully I was able to tick the boxes. Yeah.
So tell us about your job. What happens when you're a commissioner at the Commerce Commission?
I'm only an associate commissioner, so Commissioner little c. Essentially, the commissioners, the role is you're a decision maker. Decision maker on decisions that need to be made. The commission, the Commerce Commission, sort of, it's divided up into the area where I've had the most experience, which is consumer protection, and also sort of the other area is competition, where making markets work better, and also regulating essential services. Setting price and quality sort of standards where in industries where there's not much competition, monopoly sort of industries like airport services, electricity lines. But the area I spend most of my time in is the consumer, what we call division, and we basically sort of enforce two big laws: the Fair Trading Act, fairly old law, almost 40 years old, and the it's a stupid name, but the Credit Contracts and Consumer Finance Act. So the Fair Trading Act involves or has to do with making sure that businesses are truthful in their advertising. So recently we won an appeal in the High Court against One New Zealand, the old Vodafone or the new Vodafone. They'd been selling this product called FibreX, but it wasn't actually fibre to your home. And the district court, found enough.
Fibre to the footpath.
Yeah, it was fibre to the footpath, and then it was copper cable.
Telecommunications, so some of these things are written in blood.
And this, this is from activity in a limited part of New Zealand, and from quite a long time ago. And the court had found that, their advertising, and they were also saying if they had this had this part of their website where if you typed in your address, it said that they only had that product that was available, but actually, there were other products available. So the court found that they were, not telling the truth, and issued, I think the fine was just under $2 million. But
sounds minimal.
That's exactly what we thought, and we thought, this is a big company. They actually made a lot more money, from this activity, and so we went to the High Court to appeal the penalty. So
on behalf of consumers of New Zealand.
Oh yeah.
So is it the role of commissioners, assistant commissioners, is to act on behalf of the people?
Yeah.
Is it like
enforcing legislation that's of course,
so once, so it has to be legislated before you're
the people elect the government, and the government makes the policy.
Yeah.
MB's the policy house, and we're the enforcement arm. So we're what you call an independent Crown entity. So we're not directly.
So they say how it should be, and you make it that way.
Essentially. So
wrapping up that.
One New Zealand, the judge in that decision said, the fine has to have a sting, otherwise, businesses will just say, well, this is just the cost of doing business, So we were really happy with that result. Another area in the consumer.
So what was it found?
$3.675 million was the end fine. It's probably just a drop in the bucket for a big company like that.
But, so that wasn't behind them changing the branding?
I'm not sure why they changed the branding. I have no idea actually what the background to that is.
Except that Vodafone New Zealand was different from the rest of the world. But anyway, moving on. Another area in the fair trading sort of realm is we're at one of our sort of long-term missions is protecting people from pyramid schemes. And so you're probably aware that our vulnerable communities, whatever that vulnerability is, the pyramid scheme con artists, they get a lot of traction in communities that are well networked and like to work together, and especially if you're you're struggling and you're looking for something some way out of that. These the schemes seem they appear quite appealing. So we've actually got 3 cases going through the courts at the moment around pyramid schemes, but. So I guess the message for pyramid schemes is, if you have to recruit people in order to make your profit, and there's no sort of product or service involved, then it's probably a pyramid scheme. And watch out, don't get involved, and call us at the Commerce Commission if you hear something like that. So is there an 0800 number or something?
Yep, our 0800 number is 0800 943 600, and. We'd love to hear from anyone.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
So, if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Then that's normally the case with most scams, and like a kind of telltale sign that something's a bit off. Because we all know how hard, money is to come by these days. It's, it doesn't fall from trees. And the other thing is the scams, the pyramid schemes, they morph and change over time. Sometimes they're called gifting circles, which, is also, something that appeals to our Pacific people, like helping each other, working together. And it's quite close to some activities in the islands that I've heard of where, people, they might have a work group, every week they put in a little bit of money, and then on that payday, one person gets it. That sounds quite similar to your classic sort of pyramid scheme. And the other part of the consumer division is the protecting borrowers from lenders who
which is like the other end of that market, isn't it? And those nasty finance companies that are just fleecing people left, right and centre.
Well, there were some changes to the high-cost lending rules. In the old days, there were some companies charging up to 800% per annum on their loans. And so the new rules are that, it's capped at 0.8% per day, which works out to be 270, 280% per annum, which is still high. But the lenders also, they can't recover more than 100% of the money that goes out. And so if they lend $1,000, they can't get back more than 1,000, which is great.
Okay.
And
it's amazing. Well, it is amazing. Completely.
Well, what we've seen is all of those high cost lenders have either exited the market or brought their rates right down. So
wow.
That's positive.
Well, I've noticed
for
that the advertising on television's changed. That there's none of that. it was super duper. Yeah. So just thinking about those kind of rates, are you able to talk about some of the old cases where they've been found acting inappropriately?
Of course.
About some of the branding, so just to help people, help our people that are listening to this.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. You know, I'm not picking on One New Zealand, but, you know, you may have seen in the media...
It's good to name and shame, I think.
No, I wouldn't want to shame any companies that, you know... But One New Zealand, earlier in the year, they were marketing this product... what was it called? They sort of... They had big posters and massive billboards. What was it called? They were working together with SpaceX. They're working together with SpaceX on a new product, and the sort of headline was 100% coverage.
Oh yes.
And you know, and when if the layperson has coverage, they think connectivity, you know, and so wherever you are in New Zealand, and so what they were doing, they were
when
taking...
you pick up your phone, you always see some lines on it.
Yeah, and so, you know, One New Zealand were, you know, they had people running out in the bush, and they had...
I've seen that ad.
Yeah, and they, you know, but actually, the service isn't going to come in online until the end of 2024, and at the end of 2024, the only service will be text messaging that has direct line of sight with a satellite. So if you're if you're out in the bush and you really need these things, and you can't see the satellite,
honey.
Whereas we know, everyone would think, I would have all the functions that my smartphone sort of gives me now, So
well, that was how I saw that.
Well, yeah, so
number one, there's nothing until 2024, and number two, it doesn't actually deliver that at all.
No, it's just line of sight with the satellites, and so we sent them a stop now letter, and thankfully they stopped. They stopped.
That must have been quite recent.
It was this year too.
What other ones that families?
Of course, are affected by.
Yeah, big time.
Pack and Save, this is a couple of years ago, Pack and Save Mangere, the court found them guilty of overcharging. What had been happening was the prices sort of in the aisles, specials and that, they weren't, kind of reflected at the till, at the counter.
Oh, yes.
So, when you're busy and you've got a big, a lot of shopping, and you're not really...
You don't remember how much the flour was.
Or what the special was. It's not the customer's job to remember all those things. These big stores have, despite the fact they move a lot of units, they have the capacity to make sure that, the price is right all the time. And in this case, Pack and Save Mangere, our investigators who do a fantastic job, they'd actually gone in and told the person, hey, you need to change this, and then they'd come in the next day and it was still, the problem from the day before. So,
I think hasn't there been some sort of higher level thing on that recently too, that it was actually quite a common practice.
Yeah,
not actually selling the shelf price.
That we get, that's the incorrect pricing is probably one of our highest complaints that we, or complaint categories that we get at the Commission. Other cases sort of in the fair trading space were strand bags. We've all heard of strand bags. I think they're Aussie based, but they were...
They're not market based.
Yeah, well, they were selling goods online, and they were using pressure selling techniques. So they'd say, through the day, their stock level, they had a counter saying their stock levels are going down to 70%, 20%. And if you're online and you see something's down to 20%, there's a bit of pressure for you to sort of make the sale.
You really want a bag.
But in actual fact, it was just made up, completely made up.
Cute idea, though.
Yeah, very cute idea, and these sort of dark online tactics. They're increasing all the time, and we rely on consumers and customers kind of getting in touch with us when they see some. But we can't expect consumers to sort of know all this, and
so where does most information come from your investigators in the marketplace?
Yeah, it's a mix. Once we can't deal with every complaint, that comes through. But once it sort of hits a threshold of, we see a pattern forming here. There's a certain amount of complaints against a specific sort of retailer. That sort of triggers our investigators taking a closer look at things. And then once the investigators sort of, think, hey, we've got a case here, they work together with our lawyers, and the lawyers they prepare a paper for us commissioners. And our job as the commissioners is to, read what the investigators and the lawyers have worked up, and then they give us a recommendation on what to do next. And so the enforcement, it can range from anything from a stop now letter that one New Zealand was sent to, okay, we need to take them to court for this.
And then uphold some sort of significant fine, a penalty of some description that fits the crime.
Yeah.
So if we were going to sum up those key things that we just talked through, there's one of them that there is an 0800 number that you can dial any time, which is 0800
943 600.
Number 2, if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
It normally is.
Yeah. And pyramid selling is a reality because people, I see people being drawn in by those things all the time, and it could be, because our families are, and our communities are so well networked. If one family struggles, they're not alone. The impact is sort of ripples out through the families, and a lot of these pyramid schemes are actually using cryptocurrency now. So with your traditional banking system, we can at least we can at least ask for account details from the bank. But with cryptocurrency, it's there's no paper trail, and it's and your money's normally gone before you can get it back, and that's with most pyramid schemes. What happens is the people at the top, they're the only ones who make the money, and then because you have to keep asking more and more people to recruit, once you run out of people to recruit, that's when the pyramid starts collapsing. And unfortunately what happens, people sort of, once they lose a bit of money here, sometimes they join another pyramid thinking I'll make it back there. So it's a bit like gambling, a lot like gambling, I think. So sad.
Very sad. An impact on relationships, because normally the person that puts you onto the pyramid scheme is a friend or family member or a church leader. Somebody
that you trust.
Somebody you trust. And from an investigation sort of point of view, people normally, we hardly get people, are willing to go to court and sort of, give statements and see things through because, one, they might be embarrassed. Two, they've got a relationship with the scammer. So it's an area of it's one of our what we call enduring priorities, but it's kind of close to me because I know people who have been impacted.
No, I know people have been impacted.
And preying on people when they're at their most vulnerable is terrible, and that's what Otara stands up and fights against. I think
we do need to stand up and fight for that. Gosh.
Yeah, so a bit depressing.
Can you leave us on a happy note? What's the good news? Good news is that there are people like you out there calling it out for Otara.
And the great news is, I think there are programs. I think the education against scams and things like this needs to start quite early. So, I know the Retirement Commission are looking at more financial literacy in schools. And so, we haven't organised anything with them, but I'm hoping that there could be some education about, scams and what to look out for that sort of goes along on top of that. Because we all know the kids are sometimes the spokespeople in families,
Yes.
and
Especially this generation.
this generation. I've got a lot of hope in this generation. I think they're looking at my 12-year-old daughter and my 9-year-old son. I can tell they're a lot more onto it than me. At this age.
Well, 10 years on, it's going to be even clearer. I can tell you.
Yeah.
My 20-year-old daughter.
They're already running rings around me.
Yeah. Well, I think we're really so fortunate to have someone like you in our midst, Joseph.
Well, thank you. I really love the job. The geek in me, that I get to sort of engage with the law a bit more, which is fun. But also
back to your craft.
Yeah, but also just being able to stand up for consumers and be a voice, provide that community perspective at the key decision making sort of tables is really important.
Yeah. So, do you want to have something to leave us with?
Oh, okay.
What happens next? What's happening next in your life?
Oh, what's happening next? Oh, my family is my life, really. I really, one thing this role gives me is a lot of time to spend with my wife, Lorraine, and our kids. So I still do a lot of community. You'd know yourself. It's impossible to say no, and then sometimes it's impossible to extricate yourself from places.
Yeah.
And so I still get to dabble in community stuff. Just today, there's a food bank in Manurewa that I do a lot of fundraising for. And because it's called the Waka of Caring. It's run by Whaia Debbie Munro. Because she's an unregistered charity, she has a distrust of bureaucracy and red tape, which, we can all understand.
But it means that you end up very poor.
Yeah, it means it ends up very poor, working, herself to the bone. But at the same time, she makes all the decisions, and she gets to deliver her support for the community in her own way. And, there's no fetters, no funding hooks. So just today we went to Gilmore's and got some food. Luckily we got funding from Auckland Foundation for whānau who were affected by the recent weather events. And so I love doing that. And just time with the kids. I'm on my son's school board.
Of course you are.
I love it, and I try to be like the number one volunteer for whatever school trips or pizza days or anything, pool monitor, because I loved seeing my parents at school. It's sort of.
Oh, you never forget the school trips either.
Yeah. But
special.
saying that, just today, my son told me and my wife he didn't want to see us at their cultural performance. I thought, what? And he started crying. So my wife, Lorraine, folded and said, "Okay, we won't come," which was really sad. I thought, oh man, I should have snuck in and gone and watched, but. We've got to respect his wishes too.
Oh dear, he'll be sad. Well, by the time he's 10, he'll change his mind. He'll be dying for you to turn up and see you.
and I'm also on the board for a circus, this trust called the Dust Palace Trust, and they're all about promoting circus. In the community, and so
Circus performance.
Do
your kids do that?
No.
I've got a nephew that did for a while.
Yeah, well, they do a lot of corporate stuff, and my mate Mike Edward got me onto it. But they also, we've got funding to promote circus and develop circus practitioners who are Māori. And yeah, I like it because it's, you know, something arty, and I get to sort of support the arts and performance. But also I know that, you know, our rangatahi, our kids, the young ones, they love anything physical, performance related. So to promote that and be a part of that, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, because I think the kids do grow out of it pretty fast. I mean, Nako, I think he was pretty good. I saw some videos of him on those ribbon things.
Yeah, you know, like hanging from the ribbons. Like I told the commissioners that, and they were like, "Oh, that sounds pretty risky, man." You know,
well, it's very alarming when they're 8 and they're doing it.
Yeah, but you know, there's a lot of safety involved and a lot of training. But beautiful to watch. You know, flipping around in the silks, they call it.
Yeah, the silks.
Yeah, the silks.
Okay. As you know, got a bit of the lingo sorted. Yeah. Okay, well that's pretty. That's a nice place to leave it. The silks. There we go. Yeah. Well, don't try this at home, Joseph.
No way. Not at my age.
I think flying around in the silks.
Physique. Yeah, no thanks.
Thank you so much.